Okay, so I just want to say a couple things about the reading responses, just to kind of set it up. I'll talk about this too when we meet in class, but since this is, majority online course, this will make for an additional supplement to the assignment description below. So, the most important thing to remember when you're doing these reading discussions is there's a lot of different readings. You don't need to read all of the readings word for word. The best thing to do is to get a gist of these source materials, and then to hone in on a couple to read closely. Sometimes I'll tell you, hey, read that article or this article, closely, like word for word, and be careful and critical with it. Some of the other materials, the idea is just to sort of get the gist of what's going on. I've mentioned using your rhetorical reading skills, which is basically just, what's the purpose of this article? Who exactly is writing this article? What's their background, their expertise? Why are they writing this article? Um, who's the intended audience? Why are they the intended audience for this article? Why would they read it? What are they going to gain from it? Just to sort of get an idea of what's going on. What's the central claim in the article? What are some of the main pieces of evidence to support that claim? And then moving on to the next source. There are so many different sources to cover in these graduate courses. You just can't read every single word, but it's important to know, some of the main arguments that important sources are making. So just keep that in mind. So this week, we're gonna start at the very beginning of composition. I've mentioned that in a previous introduction video and overview, so I won't go into that too much, and we can talk about that when we meet. But you're going to read some primary materials, some stuff from the late 19th century, early 20th century. So some of the materials are a little dense or awkward to read just because some of the language is old, outdated, stuffy, excessively academic. Don't worry about that. Just get through as much as you can, get the idea, the gist of what's happening in this period. One of the sources is the Brereton source. That's a collection of a lot of primary materials from 1875 to 1925. Again, a lot of those materials are sort of dense. You don't need to read them all. Skimming and scanning is appropriate. And then there's a Ryan Skinnell article about comp in the normal schools, and I thought that would be kind of cool to think about because Central was a normal school for its first several years, which meant it was a teacher training school. So it's just interesting to see the history of writing programs and comp programs and how they developed at different schools. So take a look at that article. And then the last piece is a textbook that most universities used for teaching composition from, the, again, late 19th century. So, the late 1870s all the way, into the first part of the 20th century. Um, Adam Sherman Hill was the director of comp at Harvard, so his book became like the main textbook for teaching comp. So I'm gonna have you take a look at that, and then we'll talk about like what it looked like to be in a class during that time period. Like what did people do? What was the composition course like? But those sources will give you a good idea of what that experience was like, and then I'll help shape that, and we can have a discussion, and that'll kind of open up the course, and then we'll just keep building from there. So again, don't over concern yourself with every single word. Hone in on something that you're interested in, something that you notice in the reading. You don't have to use any of the questions I've provided. Um, you can pose your own questions. Those questions are just a way to set up some of the ideas that are inside those articles. Again, use those questions as you find fitting. Use them to help you. But again, they're not required. They're just there to help. But again, feel free to use them. All right, so hopefully this helps you get an idea of the reading discussion forums. And I'm looking forward to working with all of you and chatting with you about all these sources. All right, have a good day.